Why do they love you so much all of a sudden? Go ahead and pull that thing up to you. See how close it is where I can kind of like be able to kiss it. Honestly, dude, they're pretty comfortable.
Yeah,
like these are comfortable chairs for the most part. Okay, so we got a newbie today on the Athletic Podcast Baseball Development Show right here in the Juice Box. Hometown boy, Davis Harper. Gonna let Davis Harper kind of tell his whole story today. So today is gonna be story time for you guys. Okay, and it's a cool story. There's a lot behind it, a lot of emotion behind it, a lot of hard work behind it. And ultimately it's kind of, these type of stories are some of the things that we've set up this facility and this business upon, because these are the things that we want to help guys get better with. So Davis, kind of give everybody an introduction of yourself and who you are and where you go to school and what you do, and we'll start from the very beginning.
All right. I'm Davis Harper. I go to Holy Innocents Episcopal School in Sandy Springs, class of 2025, right-handed pitcher. Just recently committed to Kennesaw State.
Nice. So we got an owl in the building. We've had a couple owl guys in here in the past. So he says he's a right-handed pitcher. Well, backing up all the way to the beginning, that was not always the case, right? Where did you start out at? When did we first meet? How long we've been doing this together? And let's kind of go over the whole evolution of everything, man. Let's talk through the stuff. So, what were you before you became a right-handed pitcher?
So 14U, that spring, I was with Diablos, and I just didn't want to play with them anymore. So went over to Outlaws tryouts. I had a really good tryout. Didn't even pitch at all at the tryout. I was just an outfielder there. That was my primary position. Loved hitting, loved outfield, and met Dave at that tryout. Seemed like a pretty cool guy. So I
try. Yeah.
I
don't know how cool I am, but
So I had a pretty decent fall. The hitting wasn't there, but the fielding was. Didn't throw a single inning, and then came school tryouts for freshman year of high school. It was like a 5-day tryout. I thought I did pretty well, and when it came to the day for cuts, I got sat down by the coaches. They told me 4 words that have just like gone through my head for the past like 3 years. You are not strong enough, and you need a stronger arm. And man, those words just killed me. It was not the best thing to hear when you love baseball. Getting cut from your JV team, and baseball is like pretty much the only thing you have in life. Yeah. And not having that for almost a whole year, it's not fun.
So they told you, and this is the funny part, right? This is and again, this is nothing against any of your coaches.
No, I love all of them.
Like my biggest thing is when we're talking to players about what they need to get better at, their skill sets, like how they're developing and progressing in the game, and then ultimately like what their ceiling is going to be. You've got to be very realistic about where guys are at right now and where they could get to. So I find it ironic that nobody really said anything about your bat.
Yeah.
Right. Because we know looking back on it, like that was kind of lagging behind a little bit, right? It needed some work. It wasn't consistent. And it's funny that the things that they needed to really pinpoint were you need to get stronger and you need a stronger arm, because I feel like those are two of your better pieces to your puzzle right now, right? Like you're not a huge guy. You're 6 foot, probably 175 pounds, plus or minus. You're not a monster, but for your size, you are very athletic. You're very strong for your size. You don't have a muscle-bound build, but you're wiry. You're strong. And it's funny that they focused on that. I know at that time you were probably 5'7", 130 pounds.
Not even 130. I was maybe 120.
Okay, so you needed to grow. We know that much. But, from my recollection of watching you at tryouts and playing catch with you, I always thought you had a pretty good arm.
Yeah.
Pretty good outfield arm. You had carry on it. Yeah, it wasn't 90, but it was a good arm. So it's just funny to hear what people's takes are. Sometimes they say, hey, he doesn't really fit into what we're doing, but we don't really know what to tell him.
Yeah.
And just talk about that, man. Like, what did you, when you heard that, you say that keeps echoing in your head, but what did you think? Like, what were you going to do about that? Because for a freshman who thinks, oh man, I'm good, I'm about to play high school baseball. Oh shit, I'm not going to play high school baseball.
Yeah.
How'd you handle it?
I mean, obviously I had a ton of sleepless nights. I was just like up wondering what I did wrong during the tryout and like what I could have done differently. I just couldn't figure it out. I mean, I had like a couple bad swings, but nothing that should have like just got me like cut for good. And it was just not a good time. So I reached out to you, texted you, and I was like, just got cut from my JV team. I don't know what to do about it. And you responded with some good advice. And you were like, we could sit down, talk about it, make a plan. And we made a plan, and we followed through with it. So
yeah, we met. That was before we had our physical location, here in Atlanta. We were obviously we were training guys, but we were using some other facilities and things like that. And we sat down with your mom and your dad and you at Elite Edge over at Jason's place, and sitting right there on the couch. I remember us talking about, okay, like what's next, and I needed to get the story. I needed to know what they were telling you, and I remember probably having a smirk on my face. You guys probably thought I'm looking smug. I'm having a smirk on my face because it's like, there's no way that this is right. Like, there's no way that this is the end for you. So we talked about things like, if I remember right, getting you on a strength program. Like, we put you in a strength program. We got you going with some of the other guys that were already training with us. And, our thing was we were going to start hitting every so often. Hitting. Once a week. We'd hit once a week. I think we would throw together sometimes, just to keep you getting reps. And we'll get to how all that developed, down the line. But do you remember what happened next? Like, you remember this was January, right? Remember what we had to do February?
Was it that Dunwoody Senior thing?
Yeah. The spring developmental league at Dunwoody Senior down the road. Jay Cap, who, Coach Greg knows the Caps, from St. Pius, and Jay was working over at Dunwoody Senior at the time. I don't think he's still doing that anymore. I'm not real sure. But Jay asked me if I could run this league for him, and I had kind of brought to him an interest in potentially doing it because I knew we had some guys that weren't playing for their high school team. There were a couple other guys too. And we ran this developmental league, and it was, what was it, 20 guys maybe?
More
20,
than that.
25 probably, right? Because we had two teams. We were able to inter-squad with two teams. And I just remember getting out there and having a full plan for what I was going to do, and seeing probably the bottom half of the kids had not played before, didn't know baseball, couldn't throw, couldn't catch. It was difficult to even execute that plan. So, like, when we got to that point, you must have been thinking, oh, what the hell are we doing? Like, what were your thoughts there?
So, I mean, before we did that, I was considering quitting, like, just baseball around and just, hanging out with my friends, doing golf or whatever, typical teenager stuff. Yeah. But then you came up with that idea, and I was like, oh, maybe I can get some reps, like in-game reps. So did that and got there, and I was like, all right, so what we got, I'll deal with it. Yeah. Got some reps.
So we got reps. We didn't have very many pitchers, and we were trying to play inter-squad games. I think that might have been the first time you asked me, can I pitch?
Yeah, and you just laughed right in my face.
And I'm just like, Davis, I don't know, man. And I let you because I knew we needed some arms to throw. And I think the first three hitters you faced, you smacked the dude in the back. You just plunked dudes in the back. And I'm like, man, I'm worried I'm going to get somebody hurt. You weren't throwing super hard. It was like 69, 70.
Yeah.
But still, for some of the ball players out there, I was worried somebody was going to get hurt. I was like, man, they don't even know how to get out of the way of a pitch. So, we tabled the pitching discussion for a little bit. Again, this is your freshman year.
Yeah.
We made it through that spring developmental league. It was, I think, 8 weeks. It felt like it was a year straight. I mean, it dragged on for a little bit. So again, man, we're in the gym, we're training, we're working. And then a month or two, 2 months later is when guys were starting to finish up JV ball. So you were playing for Vic 15U. And some of the other guys that you work with in here and that train with us now, and you guys have probably seen on the podcast, Matt and Caleb and Porter and some of those guys. I don't know if Porter was with us at the time yet.
Yeah.
Danny, you were playing with them. So when it was time to start practicing again and coming together, what was that like? Getting back with ball players again. What did that feel like for you?
I mean, it felt more natural being around like better ball players than it was with the spring development league. But it was more fun because I've played with some of those guys most of my life. Yeah. And it was just nice being with them. But then again, they would be talking about like how their high school seasons went, and then they'd ask me, and I'd be like, didn't have one, and
Were they ragging you a little bit, giving you a hard time?
Yeah.
That's what the boys do. We rag each other, we give ourselves a hard time. But like, how did you take that? Did you take that as a good thing? Like, hey, they're giving me a hard time, so they care about me, or was it tough for you to receive that?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. So I was like, obviously they're being friendly and just joking around, but also it was like it hurt a little bit because it's the game I loved. I wanted to be playing with it, like playing it in the spring, but I couldn't. Yeah. And I used that as motivation. So
yeah, for sure. No, I can understand that, man. I know. Things that my buddies used to tease me about on the field sometimes. Yeah. I knew they were a kid and I knew they cared about me, and that's why they would tease me. But sometimes it would sting a little bit. I was always a small player, so give me a hard time about being small or whatever it might be. So going into that summer, you played a 15U season. I remember coming to coach you guys a couple times to fill in for Vic when he was doing stuff and watching you play, and I remember thinking to myself, dude, this kid is a really good defensive outfielder. You made a play at Brook run over your back. I think it was a diving play over your back that you made. And I'm like, man, the kid can play a little bit. And I just remember thinking, man, that makes me proud. He worked hard this offseason. Let's see what happens going forward. And, we kind of transitioned into the offseason. Then we kind of moved. We were moving into this facility towards the end of that summer. And obviously we were kind of picking up things over at Elite Edge from strength training, kind of getting you rolling back over here again. And then, Coach Greg joined us. We kind of started the Velocity Max program in its infancy. And we obviously did not really have you in that program in the beginning. You were just training with us, and you trained with some of the guys that were doing that program. But tell me a little bit about that fall, some of the things that went through your head. To me personally, I wasn't worried. I knew you were starting to get a little bigger. You were starting to get stronger, and I could see that happening. I saw you play a good summer, so I'm like, okay, he's going to be all right. Sophomore year, we're going to be good. But what about you? Like, what did you feel like going into that offseason?
15U summer, I played really well defensively. But then offensively, I maybe had 7 hits the whole season, which is not good at all. I was probably below 150 on the average. I was like, is this really what I want to do? And so came back in the fall and started training a lot. My bag got a little better. I did all barrels with some of the other, like Porter. That's when Porter joined us. I did all barrels with them. And, I was like, maybe I could still hit or whatnot. So one day we had live at bats here. I came to hit, and I was like, oh, we're doing like live pitching. And I was like, Dave, do you think I can maybe hop up on the mound? And you're like, maybe one batter. So I got up there, and I don't really remember what happened, but I was just throwing it in there. It was like, I don't remember if it was strikes or not, but I looked at the Rapsodo, and it was like 80 to 82, and I was like, damn, I maybe have something here.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, this was keep in mind, guys, this is like winter time of your sophomore year, right?
December.
So, yeah, you got cut in January of the same year, and you were, we're out at the spring developmental league, and you're throwing, 69, 70 miles an hour.
Yeah.
We get to the wintertime, you hop on the Rapsodo, you hit 79, 80, 81, and then I'm like, hey, dude, throw a breaking ball. You throw this nasty slider. that's when I knew, okay, like maybe we do need to visit potentially using you as a pitcher, because in my mind, I had a story to tell already,
Yeah.
and I knew that you had been cut the year before. So for me, I'm like, man, if we can send him to tryouts, bigger, stronger, clearly he's got a better arm. But if he can also pitch at tryouts and show that maybe that's something that he can be used for on the team, we're good. We're golden.
Yeah.
And I don't remember, did we talk at all about that? I remember this going through my head, but I don't remember if we had that discussion.
I don't know if we did. We maybe talked about it a little bit, but like it's never a big topic because I still like loved hitting and like fielding more than I did pitching then. So
Right.
it was just the plan was just go into tryouts and do my thing, hit, field, and just throw a bullpen. And so I went out there at tryouts in January, I guess, and I struck out the first 3 batters I faced, and I was like, shoot, maybe I could pitch this spring. And they were like, so then cuts came, and I made the team. I made JV, and I was so happy about that. I mean, I knew it was going to happen because based off all the training I was doing here and stuff like that, I knew it was bound to happen. So, yeah, the spring came and pitched maybe 15 innings.
Yeah.
Didn't go as well as I'd wanted it to, but I knew I had a lot more development that could be happening.
And this is on JV?
Yeah,
like
all
you're
JV.
pitching. Okay. Yeah.
And maybe like a 4 or 5 ERA, but I was throwing pretty hard. I was like probably low 80s, like 80 to 83, and I had a good breaking ball. And that season ended, and I came over to you, and I was like, man, I might want to take pitching a little seriously.
Yeah.
And
so, how'd you hit that? Like that JV season, sophomore year JV season, you're still hitting playing outfield, right?
Yeah.
So how was that? Did your performance on the offensive side of the ball and as a position player, did that kind of help you to make some of those decisions heading into the summer of that year? Like, what did it look like?
Yeah, so the first game of JV, like the whole season, I started that game pitching-wise, went 4 innings, I think 6 Ks, like 1 run, and my first at-bat, I hit a ball off the top of the wall, and I was like, oh, this will be a sweet season, and sure enough, the season goes on, and I maybe have 2 more hits for the rest of the season. I'm like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
It's not good. So
yeah.
I decided that I think we sat down in maybe like May or something like that, and we were like, there's a program that you're doing, Velocity Max, and I was like, it sounds like a pretty cool program because, I mean, it has the word velocity in it, and that's what every kid really wants, velocity. And I was like, I kind of want to just pitch in college. And so we sat down, made a plan, signed me up for Velocity Max, and then first tournament came. I don't think I pitched in the first tournament or something like that. And, I mean, it was just a wild 4 months. Then it was, yeah.
Yeah. And we were still wrestling with you playing outfield.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out if you're a position player or pitcher. I think we obviously knew what you had in your arm, and we just knew that we had to develop it. And I think, by the end of that summer, certainly not at the beginning, like you said, I don't know if you pitched the first tournament, but certainly by the end of the season, you had been established as one of our starting pitchers.
Yeah.
And I think also by the end of the season, you had kind of told me, hey, like, ixnay on the bat. Like, let's get rid of the hitting. Like, let's avoid that. Let's kind of start moving the route of pitcher only and focusing on that skill set. But, like, talk a little bit about the development that summer because, you started Velocity Max. It's the first time you did any real throwing program or pitching program to speak of. And talk about some of the stuff you had to handle in terms of learning how to navigate being a pitcher. What did that look like?
I mean, if there's like videos of me, I'm sure like when I was on the mound then, I just looked like a position player throwing a ball, but it was like a hard ball. It was like fast. So it was, I mean, my form was horrible. So that's probably a main focus I had in Velocity Max was working on my mechanics and stuff. And obviously the velocity came with that. And so that was the main focus, getting my mechanics right. And then I wanted to get my control down because I remember my first like 5 appearances in the summer. I was a relief pitcher. I didn't start any of those games. I hit probably 5 guys in those 5 appearances and had like 3 walks per appearance. And I was like, oh man, it's not good. And then I think it was the 4th of July over at Brook Run. I think I threw 1 game in relief, and then the next game I started, and that was probably the first time I was like, man, I kind of love this because I threw well, and I was like, that's a good feeling throwing well. So,
was that the team we played from New Jersey over at North Atlanta?
it might
the
have
game
been.
that you started.
That was WWBA. That was
okay.
probably like the best game I had going up to that. I threw 4.2 innings.
Yeah.
Still not a lot of innings, but I think I racked up like 8 or 9 Ks and like 2 walks or something like that.
In my mind, that game was the game that I started to realize, okay, like you're a pitcher now. You can be a pitcher. I don't remember where the velo was at then, but I do remember it climbing. I remember it being in the mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
What did you top 85? Maybe?
I think I topped 85 that game.
85 that game, maybe 85 or 86 that summer. I don't think you went past that.
86
summer.
was my top.
86 was the top last summer. But again, guys, like you have to remember, this is not even 18 months past him getting cut. We're talking probably, I guess it was right about 18 months, right? It was about a year and 6 months after you got cut. So not even a full 2 years. He went from throwing probably 68 from the outfield to, 84, 85, 86 off the mound. So we were making big strides there. You were making big strides in just being able to use your arm.
Yeah.
And, again, that was your first time going through Velocity Max and learning some of, like you said, the mechanics and the sequencing and some of the things that you actually have to do to be able to go down the slope properly. And then we finish that summer, right? And we go right into 17U fall ball. And I think our discussion was, hey, we need to keep working in Velocity Max. That needs to be a thing all off season as well. And then I think the first tournament up at PBR, what'd you do?
So it was a Saturday morning or something. It was my homecoming weekend, actually. So I was like, I just want to get this over with and go hang out with my friends.
Yeah.
Hop up on the mound. I think John Boy was there. He was giving me some advice.
Yeah.
And hop up on the mound. First pitch, 86, right down the middle. I look up at the scoreboard. I'm like, holy crap. I've got some development here. And so I think I topped 87.5 or something that game. Yeah. I had a pretty good game. I think maybe 1 run allowed or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, I can really see the changes that I had from spring to now, and that was maybe 5 months or whatever, less than that. And it was all probably Velocity Max helping me out with that. So I was like, sweet, I got something to do here. Maybe that's when college ball kind of clicked in my head, and I was like, this might be something I want to do past high school, maybe play some college with it. So
that game, that was the game that I picked up the phone and I texted Coach Tyler up at Kennesaw because, as you know, they were heavily on some of our other guys. Yeah. And, we had already had conversations the summer before. I didn't feel like we were in a position to push you onto them at that point. Yeah. And I think that was smart. But once I started to see the glimpses of, hey, okay, he knows how to command the mound now. The velo continues to tick up. I was like, okay, we need to at least put you on their radar. And I think I texted him and told them about you and basically said, hey, look, it's a work in progress still. We're working all off season together, but I want you to kind of keep tabs on what's going on. And he was very, hey, thanks for following. Appreciate it. We'll keep tabs, yada, yada. We worked through the rest of the fall, and I think our best work was in the wintertime. Yeah. I think, we've got some footage of you doing some pretty special stuff in the wintertime, especially when it came to some of the high-intent throwing that wasn't on the mound, some of the pull-down work, just kind of trying to ramp you up to where you could get to, and we started kind of creeping into the 90s with some of those pull-downs, 91s, 93s, 94s. I think you hit – what did you hit by the end of that winter?
I think I got – a 96.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
Right. So, when I started to see that and see what you could do with your arm, that's when Greg and I sat down and said, okay, we really need to start looking at how we're going to start to close the gap between what you're doing with some of that high intent, long toss, pull down stuff, which obviously you had a feel for because you played outfield all your life, and just how to tie that together on the mound, transitioning to the mound, going down the slope. And to your credit, man, you got a lot better throughout the winter. And I think, honestly, you got a lot better on your own as you went into the spring. You know, we went to go watch you pitch over at Dunwoody when you pitched there. And, you know, I thought you had a really nice outing that day. And every day, so on and so forth, past then, you know, I was getting, and we'll talk about, you know, Mike here in a little bit too, and your involvement with that and the recruiting. But, you know, Mike was sending updates, and it's 90, it's 91, it's 91, it's 91, it's 92. You know, and I don't remember if during the season you got up past 92 or not. But when we started to creep into those low 90s, that's when I started to realize, okay, like we got to get the guys on this kid. Like, people need to see you. So was it early in the spring season, like around tryouts? Was it before then? Was it the winter still? When did we get set up with Mike?
I think it might have been like November.
Okay, so it was in the fall then.
Yeah.
Okay.
November or December, he came over to my house with Connor. We sat down. We had a meeting with my parents, like made a plan on like what my like goal was, like who I wanted to play for, my top 5 schools or whatever. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is getting real fast. So I was like, man, it's wild.
Yeah. Not even 2 years. We're going from cut to now we're having discussions with dudes in our living room about playing at the next level. Like, that's about as surreal as it can get, right?
If you had told me like the day I got cut, I've never believed that at all.
Right. So what did some of that look like, those first discussions with Mike? You know, guys, Mike Ewing is our one of our recruiting guys that we trust heavily. You know, he owns RSA Scouting, you know, and his son Connor is also our catching coach here at Athletics. So, you know, Mike is obviously somebody we trust and would push Davis to be with for help. But what did some of the discussions on schools, like those top 5 schools and where you were going to go, like what did that look like? And, you know, were you guys under the impression that those were going to be realistic spots for you?
Yeah, so I don't remember what my top 5 were. I remember what my top 3 were. He was like, tell me your number 1 school you'd want to play at, like, ever. And I think I told him Georgia. And then I told him Kennesaw State would be probably my second choice if I had got to choose anywhere. Yeah. And then I think I said Clemson or something. I don't know why. But, I mean, and he was like, are those some really high, like, baseball schools, like, really good programs? And I was like, that's the goal there. And he was like, we got to work hard for that. And so season came for spring. You know, a lot of good things happened.
Yeah. Did you start, you know, when you guys were starting that process on the recruiting, did you start reaching out to schools? Did Mike start reaching out on your behalf? What were some of those schools? What levels? Was it D1? Was it D2? Was it JUCOs? Like, what were you guys looking at and discussing, obviously, before the Kennesaw thing came along?
Yeah, so Mike would text me, like, after a start, he would text me and be like, hey, what are your thoughts on this college? It would be like a small D2 or a small D1, and I'd be like, you know, that's nice, because I'd want to show interest to anyone that's interested in me. So I think the first college that ever reached out to me was ETSU or some D2. But ETSU, he called me. He was the first call I ever had with a coach, and he was the nicest guy ever. Really nice guy. He invited me up for a visit. I went up there for my spring break. Enjoyed the campus a lot. It was a nice area, really good barbecue.
Heck yeah.
So, I enjoyed the facilities they had there, but it was just like, it didn't really feel right for me. So I came back home, and so my next door neighbor, Nate Anderson, he plays for Kennesaw State, and he came to watch me play one game at high school, I think, and it was one of my better games, I think. And he texted Coach Co over at Kennesaw and was like, hey, you might want to come see this kid pitch. And so Coach Co came to one of my games, and I think I went 4 innings with 8 or 9 Ks, and he called me later that night and invited me up for a visit. I went up there. Nicest guy I've ever met. Him and Coach Pass, the two nicest guys ever. They showed me around campus, and then they sat me down in Coach Co's office, and he offered me, and I remember looking over at my mom, and she started like tearing up. She was like, "This is insane because like 2 years ago, you weren't even playing baseball, and now you're getting offers from Division I programs." And I was like, "I know, it's wild."
No, it is crazy, man. And I know that Mike has kind of a long-standing relationship with Coach Tyler. So once that stuff started to happen, I started to get a lot of feedback, not directly from the Kennesaw guys, but more so from Mike. Like, kind of, I really wanted to know, hey, like, where are we at with this? Like, is this good? Is this a good situation? And I know we had a lot of phone conversations. I talked to your dad about it. Some of my questions were on some of the other stuff too, just the academics, where you were going to be with being this close to home and all these things. I wanted to make sure it was a good fit, man, because going through that of watching you get cut from a team, have to figure out how to work for something, and then getting this awesome opportunity, I want to make sure it's the right opportunity for you. So, dude, I'm super pumped about all that. And I know that came, we're talking, this is fall of your junior year, correct? So you've got that commitment behind you. Everybody talks about this, like, okay, junior year's the year, we want to commit that year. But the reality is a lot of people do not commit.
It's a lot like in the summer or the fall of
summer or even their senior year. So, knowing that you were able to do that, was that a weight lifted off your shoulders? Did you feel like, man, okay, I did something pretty good here?
Yeah, so I committed in April, I think, and so the season was still going on. Probably I pitched amazing most of the spring, like preseason, I think. Going into playoffs, I had a 1.2 ERA, which was like surreal for me. But I mean, the walks were up there, but also the strikeouts were way above the walks, so that was nice. And we had a great team. First round of playoffs, I started a game. I think I went 4.2 innings with like 9 Ks and 1 run or 2 runs, and then playoffs went on. We made it to the Final Four. We went over to Cherokee Bluff. Insane student section they had there. They were right behind home plate. They had all these signs saying bad things about me and whatever. But
what's some of the signs say?
Can't really say some of that stuff.
Is there anything about you getting cut?
No.
So they couldn't dig that up.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
But they had
usually guys will dig stuff like that up.
Yeah, the kid that pitched before me, they had his like girlfriend on a poster and stuff. So I was like, oh boy, I hope they don't have anything bad on me. So got up there, one of my best starts of my life. I think I went five innings. They're a really good hitting team, so they obviously hit off me. I think I gave up 5 hits. Kid hit a home run. That was the first home run I gave up of my life. So I was like, well, got to get that over with. So and then we won that game. We ended up losing the next game, so our season was over. And I was committed by then, so it was like, I mean, I don't really have to worry about a ton this summer except for just getting reps and things like that. So
no, that's great, man. That's just watching you move towards all these goals. Right, check something off. Okay, made my team, great. Okay, now I'm getting better. Okay, now the velo's ticking up. Okay, great. Now I've got my recruiting guy in my corner. Okay, now I've got my commitment done. Cool.
Yeah.
Now I got my junior year, and I've pitched against some really good talent in the playoffs, and I gave up my first home run. Just checking off all these boxes. What was your take going into the summer? I know we set up again, right? We talked about, okay, we're going to do Velocity Max again in the summer. We're going to plan out everything. We're going to plan your starts, right? At this point, you were a starting pitcher this summer. What were some of your goals, knowing that you had some of that other stuff that people focus on in the summer already achieved and accomplished?
Yeah, so, we sat down, and I was like, my main goals for the summer is just, like, command the zone, have more control over my pitches and have better sequencing and stuff like that. And, velocity, I was obviously caring about that, but it wasn't, like, the top of my list in worries. So, focused a lot on command. Had some up and downs, but I mean, obviously the ups were a lot better, and so the velocity came with that. I got up to 91.6 this summer, which obviously I wish I could have gotten a little better than that, but arm was a lot of pitching in the last 6 months or whatever. So
a lot of innings.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a good summer. We finished up the summer last week. Pretty good season. Had our ups and downs, and yeah, it's a pretty fun summer.
Yeah, I mean, for you, dude, like, you're talking about, okay, I want to command the zone and, top 91.6. Okay, I wish I could have done better. Like the thing I've been most impressed with watching you is watching your average fastball velocity climb and get closer to your top fastball velocity. Yeah. When you first started pitching, I mean, yeah, you could sling it, right? When we got to last summer, I think you said you hit 86, but there were a lot of times you were pitching 80, 81.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this summer, I can confidently say your average fastball was probably 88, 89. There were games where you were pitching at 89, 90. So, closing the gap a little bit between what the top is and what you can actually pitch at, that just speaks to how much you've worked on some of the things we're talking about, the sequencing, the mechanics, the feel of what you're doing down the mound. And it's going to continue to get better and better. One of the other conversations is closing the gap between, your pull downs and your mound.
Yeah.
And I think you've done a lot of good work closing the gap there too. I know in the fall, what did you hit? 98, 99? Or I'm sorry, in this summer.
Yeah, right after playoffs ended, I came in. I was like, I kind of want to just do some pull downs because my arm felt pretty well, and I got a 96, 97, and then a 98.
98.
Yeah, so I haven't done a pull down since then. I think I could maybe get.
Yeah, well, but see, that's good, man. That shows the sheer arm strength, and I think if we continue to work on the things that you need to do as a pitcher to handle your process, your stuff. Like you said, that velocity is going to continue to tick up and close that gap a little bit. I mean, your pull downs, because you're an efficient outfield thrower, you're always going to have that. Your pull downs are always going to be, 3, 4, 5 miles an hour harder than what you throw off the mound, which is fine. But as you continue to learn how to use your body, right, learn how to work down the slope, we still have a ton of work to do in the gym, just maturing with your body. It's going to get better and better, man. I can't wait to watch what that's going to look like going into your senior year. So with that being said, give us what your plans are going into your senior year, what you're going to work on, development, preparing for Kennesaw, preparing for your season. Coach Rowland has you guys doing some stuff, in the off season, I would assume. What's that looking like for you?
Yeah, so at school, we have workouts 4 days a week, for a class. So I'll have that, and then we'll do some team workouts, hopefully in the fall, maybe twice a week. And then getting closer towards the season, we'll start doing more in-team stuff. We'll go out to our football field and we'll do conditioning and whatnot. And I think that grows our chemistry a little bit. Yeah. So I think my goals for this spring are a lot of innings pitched. I want to go longer in games than 5 innings. I want to hopefully have a couple complete games. And hopefully the fastball will be around 94. That's the big goal there. So I got a lot of work to do to get to that point, but I think I can get it. So obviously that's a goal. And then getting closer to Kennesaw, I'll have a lot of competition going into freshman year because got a lot of good recruiting going on right now. So main goal is to not get cut freshman year. I have to go back, retrace my last steps and whatnot. So yeah.
Big good thing for you, man, is you're a different player now than you were then, right? You're a more confident baseball player who has a good understanding of what you do well. You're talking about having goals in mind with your velocity, and I think just having goals in mind with the other pieces of your game too, the consistency in your training, understanding, okay, this is my process and this is what I stick to now, not just the metrics, but understanding how to get better over time, how to stay consistent, how to stay even keeled, and how to keep pushing. Like you said, there's plenty of 2025 commits going to Kennesaw, and you're going to have your work cut out for you. But, dude, you're going to have your work cut out for you wherever you go.
Yeah.
So having a good senior year really sets up all of that, and are you planning on playing any fall baseball this fall?
Yeah, I'm going to play with Pro Stock over in Marietta. I'll be doing a couple tournaments with them, so that'll be fun.
Yeah, man. I mean, continuing to work, you get some innings in, you throw some pitches. I think, like you said, you're planning on throwing a bunch of innings from February through, the summertime, and then, figuring out, okay, what do we got to do to get you fresh for going to Kennesaw? That's the key right there. But, talk about an awesome story that is not totally done with yet, going from being cut to committed to play Division I baseball in less than 2 years. Now we're 2 years and working forward. Are things like pitching at that level, pitching in regionals, and going on to the next level, potentially playing pro ball, are those things that are on your mind or that you've thought about at all?
Yeah, ever since I was a little kid, I've always wanted to play pro ball. And then, freshman year, I was like, I don't think this is realistic anymore. And then now, I think it's very much over the horizon where I can hopefully get that. And that's the overall goal.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I think for you guys watching this, listening to this, you need to understand how important the 4 years from 14 when you're a freshman to 18 when you're a senior, how important those years are in terms of development. And there's a lot that can be done if you keep the trend line moving up. And then for you guys that are nearing the end of that 4-year stretch, how important the next 4 years are in terms of your development, because that's when you turn into a man. All right, so 18 to 22, when you guys are in college, there's so much growth that happens maturity-wise, development-wise, physically in your game. And for you, Davis, you're still in that first 4 years, and you got the next 4 years ahead of you. Just keep pushing, man. Keep getting better.
Yep.
If there's one piece of advice, and I'm going to pick what you tell these guys, if there's one thing you can tell people who have been cut, who don't get what they want right away and have to work towards something, what would it be?
Don't give up. Always have determination. Just know what you want and set your goals, and just do what you need to do to get there. Yeah.
Simple wisdom. Don't give up. Set a process. Execute the process, guys. Davis, this has been awesome, man. I would love to have you on again at some point, maybe after your senior year, or maybe when you're sitting there with the black and yellow owl stuff on. So, again, guys, great story from Davis Harper, 2025 right-handed pitcher going to Kennesaw. From the Juice Box Baseball Development Show, the Athletic Podcast. We'll catch you guys next time. Davis, thanks, buddy.
Thanks.